I'm coming up again with another edition of the Concrete Chronicles. This day, I got a really good interview with you. I got SAVAG Studios. Y'all probably already know who he is, but he has a real popping YouTube channel. So we're going to chop it up about his experiences in the Cali system and everything he's been doing since returning home. So, okay, SAVAG, it's all right if I just refer to you as SAVAG, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so tell the people who you are real quick and like how long were you in the system and what time period were you in the system?
Yeah, man. I'm just a regular guy, man. I did 10 years. I went in at 16 years old. I got out when I was 20, I want to say 27. I got out May 9th, 2018. It was like 16 going on 17. So just roughly about 10 years altogether with juvenile hall and everything, maybe just a little bit over. Um, yeah, I opened up this channel not even a year ago, and I've been doing good, man. SAVAG Studios is the channel. I'm trying to help people, trying to reach people. But I've been through all California prison systems, level 4, level 3, never hit level 2, never hit level 1, California SHU systems. And yeah, I just try to get my message out, man. But other than that, I'm just a regular guy.
Okay. Now, so let me ask you this. Okay, so because I'm out here, I'm from Chicago in the Midwest, so our politics is like Cali is like 100% different. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna be asking you questions just to try to get an understanding of how things go down in the Cali system. Okay, so when
Okay.
somebody comes in the Cali system, how are they clicked up? Is it by gang or is it by race? What's the predominant factor of how inmates click up?
Okay, so if you're general population, which everyone's coming in general population, that's just what the cops will do, the COs will do. You automatically have to segregate by race immediately. Immediately. Especially me coming from juvenile hall. When I turned 18, I went to county jail, and I had a lot of partners in juvenile hall that was black. And in juvenile hall, we didn't have that political structure to the fullest. So we was able to kind of still eat with each other, play with each other, joke, roughhouse horseplay. And man, I'll never forget what a change it was going to county jail on my 18th birthday. And then maybe like a month or two later, some of my boys from juvenile hall, my black homies, would come over when they turned 18. And we was never able to be close like we once were because of that racial segregation and us having to conform. But that's what it is, man. It's a racial segregation right off top. Immediately, you gotta fall in line.
Okay. And then what would happen if someone like crosses those barriers? So say like you saw one of your boys from juvenile hall and he was getting, in the child hall and he didn't want to eat the rest of his food he said, you can go ahead and have a SAVAG and you ate off his tray. What would happen to you? Or what would happen to the black guy?
Nothing's gonna happen to the black guy because the blacks don't care. The blacks aren't about that racist viewpoint that the Southsiders have. Now, what would happen to me? I would be either smashed out of the pod very, very violently, or I would be given something along the lines of a 3-on-1, which is a popular form of discipline that we use in the county jail, which would be uh, maybe 13 to 36 seconds, however, whichever one they choose, of three homies fighting me, and I'm fighting them back.
All because you just decided to eat some food from a black guy, or it could have been even a white guy or an Asian guy, just all because you decided to cross that racial line, you'd be violated like that.
Well, this is where it gets like this. On my channel, I always talk about how I never felt it, like I never was with it, right? Because this is the other side to it. Like we could eat with whites, like we could do anything with the whites because they're white and we're Mexican, and like so that I was already lost on that because from my neighborhood where I come from, you don't really see white people too much like that. You know what I mean? Like it's us and blacks. So that's how I grew up. So that already was a conflict for me. I don't like racism period towards anybody, but I really didn't like if we did business with blacks in any way, we had to go through whites. Like the whites would be the ones who touched everything, whether it was like closed items because they had to be closed items. It just was a very racial situation. And yes, my people would violate me. That's a perfect word because it is a violation for something so small, something so human.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Now you use the term Southsider. Now is that the same thing as Sureño?
Yes, it is, but it's like when anyone comes over to county jail, whether they gangbang or they don't, they could either be considered a resident or a Sureño. It just depends on if they're gangbanging. But either way, they're going to have to fall into the army, into the organization of the Southern United Raza, which is Sur, and they're going to be considered a Southsider to everyone else around them, anyways. But if they're not gangbanging, they're just residents. They're not Sureños.
Okay, okay. So now, well, so you were with the Sureños, right, when you first came in, correct?
Yes.
And now, so now from my understanding, like say like anybody, like you said, any gangbanger from Southern California is considered a Sureño. But is it true, like say for example, if somebody was from Florencia 13 and somebody maybe from 18th Street said they were beefing on the street, once they hit the penitentiary, they have to become allies?
Of course, you can't even put a hand on each other. And if you do put a hand on each other, there's disciplines that will be afforded to you. Could be like a 2-on-1, a 3-on-1. If you do it again, you could get smashed out for it. But you have to put that to the back burner. I've had to do it many times. I've had cellies that were from enemy neighborhoods, and our rule is we can't fight each other. We can't hurt each other. So that's another thing that never really made too much sense.
Right. And I mean, how is that? Because it's like, I mean, I would imagine that would be kind of like tough. Like, man, I'm backing this guy up now in the riot on the street. I wanted to get him. He killed my homies. I mean, what type of mindset does that make you feel like?
Well, try having to take orders from somebody like that. Try having to take some orders from somebody who's not even from your hood, let alone an enemy hood. It's all about power. It's all about position. It's all about who you know. It's a bigger scheme when you get up to prison. It's not the same kind of two-step. It's different. What happened? That's why I tell all these little young Southsiders on the streets, they label me this, they label me that because I'm a dropout. But it's like you don't even know the half of it. If you knew the half of it, you wouldn't want to be a part of what you're a part of. You damn sure wouldn't want to go to prison and have to live this life, because a lot of these youngsters are actually, they hate their enemies. They don't like their enemy neighborhoods. They don't like their enemy gangs. They don't know. A lot of them don't know that if they went to the pen, there is a good chance that their enemy gang could have more clout, could have more numbers, could be the voice for their car. Because every different, let's say, part of LA, part of Ventura County, they all have their own cars. Like for mine, it was the San Fernando Valley car, which is LA, but we're not an LA car. We're San Fernando Valley, so it's Pacoima, San Fernando, Canoga, all the valley, Silmar, all the spots in the valley, and we're our own car. So we discuss things that have to do with us. If there's cleanup that, like, we need to remove somebody that's from the valley, we talk amongst ourselves. And I've been in positions where, let's say, San Fernando, the city, was deeper than Pacoima, and we're rivals. Like, we hate each other. And they had more say so. They had more it just was very off-putting to even have to even sit down with these dudes and talk about what needs to be done amongst our car. But if half of these youngsters knew the real scheme of what things were like, I don't think they would be feeling that, because it's not even the same kind of rah-rah message that they push when they make music videos. They're out there on the streets gang banging, throwing up their hoods. Come on.
Right. Now I understand, like, now I know there's like there's a truce between the Sureños and the Norteños now, but back when you was in, y'all were still rivals. Now, how did that play out? Because you are both Mexicans, and I understand like the Norteños kind of rock with the blacks. So what can you break that experience down to me? Like, give me more detail about that.
Look, that rivalry's the oldest one. That one's from way before my time. But I mean, I think the last ones were in 2005. They got rolled up out of Old Folsom. They kept riding. They got taken off the yard. But you don't really see Norteños. Sureños never really see Norteños. There was a riot back in like 2012, I want to say, in Kern Valley in the level 4. They tried to, because it's been going on for so long. There's been so many talks, so they had tried to release them both at the same time. And I think the Norteños actually ended up killing a Sureño in the yard. And as soon as they released them, but it was like an 80-man riot, nothing too big. Because in the level 4s, it's real controlled, not that many inmates, but they're very violent. So that's what happened then. But now everyone's programming together. But up until then, you really didn't really get to see them. You didn't. They kind of, the cops have had them segregated from us. But it's been a very, they hated us and we hated them without a doubt. And until I became SNY and dropped out and was forced to actually program amongst them, their dropouts and everyone from the Bay Area, I'm very thankful for that, because they're just like us. They may have a different slang or different words they use, but they got the same sense of humors. They laugh at the same things we laugh at. They like the same things we like. There's way more in common than there is that actually puts us in on opposing sides. So,
Right.
but before knowing that, before that knowledge, man, it's just a hate that you have from a kid, man. You don't know nothing about him. You just hate him. You just know that word, you hate that word, and if you ever see him, you're gonna handle him.
Okay. Now, has that truth extended to the street as well, or is it just in the prison?
If a Norteño goes anywhere in Southern California, he's dead.
Really?
Quick. Now, I'm not saying they don't come down here, but I don't think they come down here with their red rags banging. I think they're very low key when they are down here. Now, there's actually a lot of Sureño hoods in up north communities where they're predominantly Norteños. Salinas being one of the major ones where they have Norteños and Sureños that are going at it. And it's crazy because down south Sureños in California, they don't really respect the Northern-Cali Sureños, even though those are the ones who are on front line with the actual enemy. They don't get respect in the pen like the Southern California ones do, like LA, San Diego, Orange County, San Gabriel Valley, all those ones, which has always been odd to me. But no, yeah, it's even from my comment section on the videos I've made on both ends, Norteños will still smoke a Sureño real quick. And there's no love on the streets. It's just purely a prison thing that had to do with getting the big homies released from the SHU, because they had been in the SHU for 17, 20, 25 years, slammed. And finally they're out on the yards and they want to stay out on the yards. So that had to require a certain level of peace talks and.
Okay. Now I want to ask you, I've seen a couple of Cali videos and people talk about paperwork. It's like a big thing in the Cali system. Can you just break that down for me? Like, what's the significance of paperwork and like why is it so important?
Paperwork is everything, man. Paperwork, that's your driver's license. That's everything, man. That's what keeps your head on your shoulders, because if you got clean paperwork, that's the most important thing to you staying alive and staying good. No matter what side of the fence you're on, no matter what part of prison you in, your charges have to be clean charges, because California has zero tolerance on sex crimes, zero tolerance on child crimes. No one cares about domestic violence crimes. No one cares about anything like that. It's just rape, child molestation, and any type of like child cruelty and things like that. Those will get you sent down to the fiery pit real quick, So your paperwork is everything. You want to be able to show. And even when you're politicking and you're gang-banging, paperwork is still everything, because although you got the good charges, that's cool. There's another level of having paperwork. Like for myself, it used to be like my rap sheet, but it was almost like my badge. I used to have so many SHU terms, so many write-ups, so many riots, so many incidents, batteries, and I would have a big old stack of paperwork, and I would bring that with me. And anytime I would get to a new spot, I would send it all to every one of my people that was around me, so they could just know the kind of individual I was, introducing myself to them, not trying to tell them, oh yeah, I'm the baddest guy, but hey, look, this is who I am. This is the caliber of individual you guys have on your side right now. That's all it is. So paperwork.
So it's almost like a resume almost.
It is the resume. It is a resume.
Okay.
It is a resume.
Okay. So say if I'm I'm Sureño, I hit the yard and I got my paperwork, and say if it has something about like showing something, me talking to the cops or something like that, what would happen to me?
You're dead. They're gonna whack you. They're gonna try to slice your throat. It just depends what prison you're in. Let's say you're level 3, they could still possibly really try to kill you. But if you're level 4, there's no chance about it. They're gonna try to kill you. Like they're gonna try to.
So there's no way I can talk my way out of it. They're just gonna get me.
Well, what it just would be depending what it said, and if there was any room for you to even talk your way out of it, because it would be hard to talk your way out of something that said you were talking to cops, like actual paperwork saying that. But if it's a situation that like really leaves a lot of wiggle room, yeah, and if you approach it, because the hard part is actually having the balls to go to the yard and approach it where everyone's at, especially if no one knows you and you're like, hey, look, I need to talk to somebody. This isn't right. If you approach it like that, yeah, you know what? There's actually a chance there's a chance you can explain yourself. Yeah, you might be lucky, but let's say you land somewhere, you slide your paper out, you slide your paperwork out while you're in your cell. Someone shoots a line into your house, or they send like a trustee to come grab it from you so he can give it to the main rep who has the block. The rep reads it. You're not going to know anything's up. You wouldn't know if you were going to die either way. You just don't know. You take a gamble. You just, hey, I'm going to go to yard, see if I can explain myself. If not, most likely someone will come up behind me and slice my throat or start sticking me in the back. We'll figure it out.
Wow. Okay.
You'll never know.
Okay. Now, another thing, a term I often hear is a shot caller. Now, what's the shot caller, and how does one become a shot caller?
The shot caller is the person who has precedence over the yard. They don't do that anymore. They have like the mesa, which is like a table and then they have like bloqueros, which are the reps for each block. But they used to have the whole one man in charge. In some places they probably still do, but they try to make it to where they can divvy up some of the authority and power to more people, because if there's one person, it's like a recycling thing. He ends up getting whacked for a power play because someone wants his position. However, yeah, to earn that, it just honestly, you can put in a lot of work. You can do a lot of things. It's gonna take a decade of your life, if not more, to show people that you deserve any type of thing. It really comes from connections. It's a crooked rig system. You know, if you have connections, family connections, things like that, then you're really well off. I've seen some crazy things with people in charge because of money, because of ties to drugs, certain things like that. So I don't know necessarily if you can earn that spot through blood and violence. And because if you do, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have to trade your life for that position of power. And that position of power comes and goes, comes and goes, comes and goes.
Really? So once you get shot call, you're not secure?
You better watch your back, and you better hope you're doing everything right, because there's a lot of people coming for your position. There's going to be a lot of people talking about how you're running things. They're going to be talking about how you ran your program, what's going on your yard, how much money you guys making. I could do better than he's doing. Those conversations don't happen on that yard with that guy. They happen when those people leave the yard, they go to the shoe, they start talking amongst other people who got power in different prisons, and they say, man, you know what? Let's take him out. And they used to have a thing where they take him out and then they take out everyone underneath him who worked for him. And it wasn't their fault. They worked for him. They didn't know anything about this big old power play, but they got whacked too.
Jeez. Okay. And something else I heard, like when you're in Sureño, you have to like pay rent to the shot caller. Is that true, or what's that about?
Yeah, we get taxed a third of any drugs we bring in. Like if we bring in any drugs from visiting, any dope from visiting from our ladies, she's taking the risk for us. We're trying to hustle to provide the best we can. We got to give a third of any drugs that come in to the higher up, to the house. And as well, furthermore, anytime we go to store, I think it was like a dollar or an item for every $10 that we went to store, we had to give up to the kitty, which is like a big thing that helps homies who are coming in. We can provide for them. It's like a system, but there's no wiggle room. You have to, though. You know what I mean? You have to. And I hated it. I hated the taxing part, because I used to sell dope in prison. I used to have my ex bringing me dope in prison. And it's like, it was very lucrative. There was a lot of money being made. And it's like, man, I can't imagine somebody with their hands in my pockets. I can't imagine somebody asking for a third of what I had going on. I would say no 10 times out of 10 times, and that would probably get me whacked. So.
Wow. Okay. Now, something else I want to talk about, getting back to the racial thing. Now, I understand, like, a few years back, there's a lot of beef between the Southern Mexicans and the Blacks. Now, how did you see that? Now, were you ever involved in the riot against the Blacks? I mean, did you see them as formidable enemies, or like, what's your take on that whole situation?
I was in a 100-man riot one time in Old Folsom, 2010. It made the news and everything. It was us against the blacks and the others, and I think some of the whites jumped with us. We won that one, and we were outnumbered pretty bad. But for me, the blacks have always been a formidable enemy. The blacks have always been very, 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 very strong. And this is what I always keep it real, man. Like when I was in county jail, it was smaller numbers in the pod, but it was a dorm. So it was a gang module. So it'd be like, let's say 15 of us, 15 of the blacks, 15 of the whites, 5 paisas. And every now and then the numbers would fluctuate, not by much. They're probably the lowest we'd get, there'd be like 8 of us, and there'd be like 20 something blacks. And every time the numbers would fluctuate, either race would bully the pod, you know, like kind of just walk around a little more cocky, because that's just what human nature, I guess, kind of is in a Shark Tank, you know. But I was really close to the black rep, like really close, and I was the rep of my people. So I remember a few times when I first got there, we were going to kick it off over some situations. The blacks wanted to kick it off with us. Like it came to a point where we were all squared off in the day room, and my people were trying to like peace treaty, like no. And it was literally just me and one other homie of mine that were squared off. Like, what's good? That's good. Run it. And everyone else was just like, no. And to be honest with you, you see that a lot. The way things are structured, I think that the black car is a very strong car. You know, they fight each other. Enemy hoods, they run those fades. Like I one time seen a guy run like 8 fades back to back because they were all his enemies. We don't have that. We don't have that form of like, I don't know what you would call that, but it's conditioning in my eyes. You know, it keeps them conditioned for war. We have this thing where like we can't put hands on each other. If one jumps, we all gotta jump. And it's just like, I never respected that. Like I always like the get down of conditioning, having to stand your own. If he's your enemy, you get down with them, stuff like that. So in my eyes, and yes, I've had my ass handed to me in a couple riots with against blacks too. So I would never be the one to be like, oh no, we always take them out. We just got hella numbers. So we always do end up winning because we just got a lot of numbers. And if we don't have the numbers, sometimes we just got people that got the right amount of heart. We're usually the first ones to stab and try to butcher shit. But when it comes to throwing them from the shoulders and like really fighting, you better be careful, man, because blacks would knock your ass out.
So they will hold their own. It's not like they're just getting, you know, they will hold their own in the riot then.
Oh no, they're powerful. They're very powerful. They'll always hold their own against any race. They're very powerful. Yeah, that's without a doubt.
All right. Now something else. Now you mentioned earlier that you're a dropout. Now I understand, like back in the day, when you heard the term dropout, you figured like a child molester or a snitch. But I understand now that a lot of people are dropping out because they're just tired of the politics, you know, tired of taxing, and that S&Y yards are actually more dangerous than the main line.
They're almost like 5 times more dangerous than the main line. The main line is just more structured and it has more accountability. But like, okay, right now, what's happening is it's like a tectonic plate shifting on the earth, right? Like it's something so big that these guys can't even really wrap their minds around it because they're too busy with the stereotypes and what they're calling people. Child molesters are dying at a rate, I want to say 5 times their population in prison right now. It was something like that. You can look it up online. They're being killed in S&Y off top. When S&Y opened, a lot of it had to do with the fact that there was dropouts on the yard because there was no S&Y yards. So they were considered no good, ex-Mexican mafia members who were thrown in the hat, put on a list, whatever. And they stuck together. They had each other's back through this crazy yard where all these active Sureños were trying to get them. And they would get got every now and then, but they would have each other's back and they would stand each other's ground. They started to formulate. They put a title on themselves because they were always called pesetas. So they ended up embracing that title because they were never able to be really removed from this active yard back in the 90s. So this was the most treacherous time to even be in prison. This is when, you know, they had weights. Everyone was huge, walking around killing each other, butchering each other. And they stood their ground. So after the pesetas coined themselves that name, They started getting in trouble. They started getting sent to the hole. And then they finally end up having to open up these SNY yards, not only for protection of child molesters or snitches, but because there was so much bloodshed going back and forth, and a lot of Sureños were always moving, always taking off, always attacking dropouts. So, and the dropouts were always fighting though, and some of them didn't fight, some of them fought, but there was the ones who started what I was a part of. They did fight. They always fought. Sometimes they would even be the aggressors. So when they did open up SNY yards, they validated 2-5ers, pesetas, and they sent them to like Pelican Bay, Tehachapi, Corcoran Shoe. That was how the boom and the beginning of SNY even started.
Okay. So when you're on an SNY yard, so example, we couldn't talk to each other on the main line. I'm black, you Hispanic. We on an SNY yard, it's up to us if we want to kick it with each other, right?
Yeah, we could even be cellies. Like you could move it to my cell and no one could tell me shit. Period. Like I could make you a 2-5er. You could be a 2-5er with me. You could be one of my brothers. We could have each other's back. That's the part I love. That's what I loved about it.
All right. And then also it's like, so it's no real politicking. Well, I guess it's like no one's saying, okay, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. If we got a beef, we handle it with each other, and it didn't become like a whole race thing. Is that correct?
Exactly. Okay, so look, there is a lot of politics now in the SNY, but the politics aren't what they are on the other side. The politics are like how, like, okay, let's say like 2-5ers, how we would conduct ourselves. We have very few like rules, just the obvious ones, like no chomos, no sex offenders. If we see them, we get off on them, we attack them. We don't program with them. But the rules are mostly set up to where like whoever we're bringing into us, how they conduct themselves, like they got to be down. You got to have heart. You got to be able to you got to earn your way. Being a Southsider and a Sureño, you come into prison or jail as a Mexican person, you don't have to put in work to be a part of them. Maybe one day they'll ask you to put in work, but maybe one day they won't because there's so many of them. But either way, you're a part of the army already. With like 2-5ers, you get to SNY and you have an option. You could be an independent rider, a 2-5er, a northern rider, a cutthroat. You could choose from whatever you want to be a part of. And then when it's time to earn your jersey, you got to actually put in work to earn that, to be a part of that. So it's like kind of political rules set up like that as a form of like maybe recruiting or initiating, but there's no real there's no racial stuff because like 2-5ers specifically, even the Northern Rider, everyone has mixed race, white, Mexican, black. And that is a key component to what the old views don't have. And that's the key component to why SNY is taking over, why so many people are coming into jail now. They're not even getting to the jail before they drop out. They're just saying, hey, I'm a 2-5er or I'm an independent rider. I'm cool on GP right off the top.
Okay. Right. So now does this, when people are like becoming 2-5ers, at least on the Hispanic side, now how are they received when they go back to their hoods? Is that still a stigma?
Okay, that's a good question. Our hoods hate us. They have this thing where they think we're like Sureño killers. We just stand our ground, like we just defend ourselves. But they hate us. Now I got a lot of bros who get out and they go back to their hood, but they're low key. Like they don't claim 2-5 out loud, but they'll keep in contact with me, but they're still in their hood. And the real ones from their hood know what's up with them, but just because they're 2-5 or just because they're on, it doesn't mean that they didn't spend their whole life in their neighborhood gangbanging. It doesn't mean that their homies from their hood don't still love them or respect them. So 9 times out of 10, the ones who are still in their hood, their homies know that they're no good, but they just, as long as they're not like banging the 2-5 all out loud, and they don't really trip on them.
Okay. All right. Now, something else I wanted to ask you. In the time that you were in, did you ever come across anybody from the big 4 gangs like M8, BGF, AB, or were they all just still locked away in the shoe?
I did a lot of time in the shoe, and I actually met a couple MA members and AB members as well, but no BGF. The BGF is kind of like, I don't want to speak out of pocket and speak out of turn because I can't speak on something I don't know about, but I ain't seen no BGF. I've seen some old school blacks though that have a lot of respect though, and their word carries a lot of weight. But I can't even say that BGF is even around anymore. But like I said, don't let me be out of turn. Maybe we should do some research on that. I don't know.
All right. So we now the SHU, is that the same thing as administrative segregation, or is it something different?
It's basically the same thing, but administrative segregation is located on each prison yard. So let's say I'm on the yard, I smash somebody real good. They send them off on a stretcher. They give me like a battery. They're gonna put handcuffs on me. They're gonna transport me to another side of the prison facility, which is a wing called AdSeg. And it's although it's a different design, although it's still the same concept. 23 hours of lockdown a day. You get an hour a yard. Now I'm hearing that they're starting to give more yard time, but usually it's 23 hours lockdown. You come out for an hour. Some places you come out for an hour every few days, but the SHU is an actual whole prison yard designated like AdSeg. So they're like the SHU is like, no, there's no yard to program. The whole place is just buildings and blocks full of segregated housing.
So how did you keep your mental stability? I mean, being locked away by yourself all that time. I mean, what did you do when you were in there?
I learned to love it, man. I learned to hate going to the yard. Out of 10 years, I probably spent over 8 years in the SHU or in the hole, AdSeg, because I learned to hate being around people. I didn't like being around people. I never lasted 6 months on any yard. I think I did 8 months. I'm sorry. 8 months was the longest I ever did, and I ruined it. And I was working in the kitchen. I was trying to keep my nose clean. I don't do well with other inmates. I just don't. So I learned to love it, and maybe being in it so much is what made me love it. But man, I read a lot of books. I read books. I worked out half of the day. If I wasn't working out, if I wasn't doing that, I was drawing. And in some administrative segregations, I was actually tattooing a lot. So I'd be tattooing on my celly for hours and hours. You actually find a lot of ways to keep yourself busy. And if you have money, you can buy yourself a TV. They allow you to have your TV back there. So it was kind of life. It's like you got your TV, you got your books, you can work out. You don't got to deal with nobody's crap, the yard politics. You don't got to deal with having to look over your shoulder. Who ain't going to want that, right? Who ain't going to just want to just kick it? Now, the risk you run of being in the SHU, 9 times out of 10, the cellies that you end up getting, because you have to take a cellie, and the cellies you end up getting are they're troublemakers, and a lot of them got bad attitudes. They've been to like California Youth Authority, so they got certain habits. And when you have a cell fight in the SHU, things usually always end up fatal or lethal. So, and there's nothing like fighting another man in a cell. It's one thing to get into a fight, but it's another thing to always fight for your life. And when bloodshed starts happening, and it really tests the kind of character and the kind of heart you have, because you have to go into the fight knowing that I'm probably gonna have to kill this guy because he's probably gonna try to kill me. So if that means I have to smash him over the face with a cup or try to bash my TV over his face, oh damn, look, he just happens to have a knife. He just cut me. Great. Now I gotta really try to break him down, because when they put you in the SHU, there ain't no cops in the section. Ain't no one going to hear you scream other than the other inmates around you. And they're not going to say, hey, guard, they're fighting. No, they're going to listen. And if a guard happens to see you while he's doing walk, or if the tower happens to look into your cell and see that you guys are going at it, if he wants to help, he may hit the alarm. But a lot of COs would just watch. They'll just watch it play out. They'll watch and see what's going on.
Wow. That's crazy. Okay. So now another thing about the SHU, because I understand that when you're in the SHU, then you had the blacks, the Sureños, the whites all back there. Was there any interaction between you all? Like, would y'all talk over events to each other or pass each other books to read, something like that?
Even as a dropout, you have a lot of communication through events, but even as a dropout, like corporate SHU's always been mixed. Like they'd have a couple dropout cells, then they'd have like some Sureños next door to me, then like active whites, blacks, everything was always a mix. And one thing about you, to get a kite from A section to C section, you got to fish it through the line, and you got to go through doors. And so you need assistance. And let's say I'm a dropout and I'm closest to the door to fish through. These GPs are going to need my help to get to the other side. Now, they're not going to send no hot info. They're not going to send a hot kite that's got some crazy info, but they might want to send a book to one of their homies, or they might want to send like a care package. When you're in the SHU long enough, according to the yard, you're not supposed to do this, and it doesn't happen. But in the shoe, things are different. We help each other out. We don't talk about it though. So the Sureños not gonna go to yard and be like, yeah, the dropouts, we used to exchange books, we used to do this. No, but we did, because when everyone's in the shoe, man, you gotta help each other, man. You otherwise you really are isolated. And I've been around some Sureños who really didn't want nothing to do with me. They really wouldn't look, wouldn't talk, wouldn't help, didn't want help. And that's cool. That's their structure. But a lot of them usually like to talk because they don't know how to do shoot time. And a lot of them are youngsters. So when they get back there, they're just like, man, screw it. I got to talk to somebody.
Right. So that's crazy. So that just kind of just makes me think of how ridiculous some of that politicking is. Because like when you're on the GP, y'all trying to kill each other, then y'all get back sent to the shoe and everybody's cool. You know, it's like, wow, that's just crazy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right. So let me switch gears here. So you've been out, and I understand like recidivism is a high, it's high. I remember this one comedian was joking like, man, when I was in prison, I see more people coming back to prison than coming the first time. So how have you managed to not go back? What's keeping you from going back?
10 years. It's a decade. You know, I gave up a decade of my golden years, right? I truly believe, like from me to you, I truly believe if I would have stayed out of prison, I'd be rich by now. I'd be rich by now. So I lost a lot of time. I lost a lot of money, and things are good right now. Things are real good, but I don't commit crimes. I don't. I've smashed on a couple Sureños out here on the streets because they've tried me right in front of my girl while she was pregnant. And I really hurt them, And that's about as bad as it gets. You know what I mean? I got a lot of bros out here that I'm in contact with. They know how I used to be on the yard. Mm-hmm. They still move with that criminal mindset. They still do crimes. They still are knuckleheads. And they know I got them, but I don't do that. I'm a family man. I got my son. I got my wife. I spent a lot of years. When you're in the shoe, you think a lot, you know, and I spent a lot of years meditating on what's most important in life and what I was going to get. And every goal I've set for myself, I actually went and attained. I got a beautiful wife, my son. I got a badass car on 20s, you know, like a promising future. This is everything I wrote down on paper. And I would tell my cellmates, hey, when I get out, this is what I'm going to do. I used to tell every cellie, we'd be talking, and I used to be like, man, I don't even belong in here. That's the crazy thing. And I don't even think they really understood what I was trying to say when I said it. But I don't really believe, and I never did believe for 1 second that I belonged incarcerated. It just wasn't. I'm not made to be stifled. I'm not made to be under anyone's authority. And I'm just no longer a criminal. You know, I'm gonna do everything legitimate and legit and beat that recidivism rate because I'm aware of the recidivism rate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I understand also that like I was saying, you're also like a tattoo artist.
Mm-hmm. I'm having to shut that. It's unfortunate that I'm gonna have to kind of stop that because I'm really good at it. I really like it. You know, I spent a lot of years doing it, but as the channel is starting to grow, I get recognized a lot out in public, man. A lot of people are like, hey, I've even got pulled over. Well, I didn't get pulled over. I get flagged down when I'm driving. And the kind of guy I am, I'm like, man, pull over. And I'll take a picture with him and I'll talk to him. But I can't afford to, because I tattoo out of my house. And I got a whole little setup and the chair and all professional equipment. I can't afford for people to know my location, unfortunately. Oh, yeah, so, you know, that's going to be my plan B. If everything was to like fall through and not work out, then I could always be a tattoo artist, you know. But as for now, this YouTube thing, what it did was it opened up a platform for a movie that I'm actually going to be co-producing. Oh. And yeah, I can't say too much about it right now. Once I get the green light to promote it, though, once they give me the promotional green light, it's going to be a big deal, man. So it's pretty cool. So I got to thank YouTube for that. So I think this is going to be very prosperous. And I don't think I really need a tattoo.
Okay, all right. So you do just got like a lot of, you know, big things coming along the way that we can kind of look forward to seeing from Savage.
Oh yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. Really big things, man. Man, I just wish I could talk about it right now. I just can't.
Right, right. Well, that's what's up. You know, like I said, I always like to see people doing positive. I hate seeing people go to prison in the first place, but let alone go back. So that's always
Yeah.
positive. I hope you kind of, keep us posted so we can be looking out for these type of things. So I guess, so I want to close out here. I want to thank you for your time. I know I just hit you up out the blue. It was like, man, I want to interview you. And you was cool about it. I was like, well, yeah, we can rap. And so I really appreciate that. Some people be like, I don't know you, man. I ain't, but because I've always, when I would listen to your interviews, I would always see that you was never one-sided. That you always kind of like, you just kind of told it like you saw it. So I definitely want to rap with you. So I really appreciate the time. So in closing, I want you to, shout out your page again. So, for my viewers, they can go over to you. And any last thing, closing you want to say to the people?
Yeah. Well, first off, I want to say thank you for having me on the channel, man. I really like your content that you're putting out. And of course, man, the truth is the best thing to spit, man. I don't got to spit my views. I don't got to spit their views, your views. I can just spit the truth or how I saw it according to me. But yeah, thanks for letting me come on the platform. I'm going to shout you out all over my Instagram. I really like this interview. The one thing I like that we touched on was the racial part, because I really hate racism, man. And a lot of my boys out here are black. That's who I relate to really well. It's always been that way since I was a kid. I've always had that. They call it like up north swag over here in Cali, because the Bay Area, the Northern-Cali, they run with the black, so they tend to have a more swag like that. That's always been me. I've always so
you never a cholo,
huh?
I never was a cholo.
I never no, I never was a cholo. That ain't my cup of tea. Never talked like that. But the one thing I want to do is just shout out to our communities. It's much love to everybody, but it's a beautiful thing when black and brown can come together, because if you think about it, those are the two groups that should come together and should always kind of be, together, hand in hand, But nonetheless, check me out on SAVAG Studios. That's the YouTube channel. We Savage, we_Savage, so it's W3_Savage with the 3. Like I said, man, I'm definitely gonna shout out this interview right here. I had a lot of fun doing it. Maybe we can catch up on something again. You actually asked some really good questions, man. You asked some good questions, man. Not for 1 second did this fall flat or get boring. So yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me on your platform. I appreciate it, man.
Wow. And feel free to post this on your page as well, because you got way bigger platform than me. So definitely get to see the people from your page. So feel free.
I wasn't able to record this